I finally rewatched Hook, and I have thoughts. But first of all, none of this should be taken as a criticism of Robin Williams because he was an absolute treasure. First of all, this movie is so long. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes long, I think. So this might have to be 2 parts. I'm so sorry. The first scene we see is a play of Peter Pan that Peter's daughter is in, which is a little on the nose, but whatever. And the quality of some of these images is rough, but this is all I had to work with. So they're watching their daughter who's playing Wendy. So just so we're clear, their family is very well versed in the story of Peter Pan. So Peter gets a phone call. His phone literally rings in the middle of the play and he answers it. So I guess Peter being insufferable carries from the last film. And his wife is like, "Pray tell, what is wrong with you?" But he's preparing for an important meeting. And his son, Jack, is like, "Please do not miss my baseball game. It's extremely important to me." He's like, "I would not miss it." He obviously misses it. Bad dad word. Then they're flying to England because a hospital is being dedicated in honor of Granny Wendy. This is the picture that his daughter draws for him on the plane. He's very afraid of flying, which is ironic. And everybody else has a parachute, but not him. Absolutely savage. They arrive and are greeted by Professor McGonagall, Wendy. And honestly, the vibe is that she's obsessed with Peter, which is a little bit unsettling considering she's his grandmother-in-law, because he sort of weirdly marries Wendy's granddaughter, which we'll get to. Peter still has some important business dealings to attend to, so he's taking phone calls, and the daughter is like running around with a lampshade on her head, and she tries to pull the phone out of his hand, and the son's like, they're being very loud, and the wife's like, LOL, and then he snaps, which in this situation, I kind of don't blame him. But he does yell at the children. It becomes very awkward, and then he's left with just his wife. She basically is like, "Get off the phone," and he's like, "I will not." So she chucks his business phone out the window, which everybody is being dramatic in this scene. Skip ahead. They have to go to the dedication of the hospital, but Wendy is in this fort reading the story of Peter Pan, or telling the story of Peter Pan. Her whole house is like Peter Pan themed. She has like, hold on. She has a hook latch on her window. There's like Peter Pan mural. Like, she loves Peter Pan. This family is deeply steeped in Peter Pan lore. Anyway, they go to the dedication. While they're gone, the children are terrifyingly snatched from their beds. I did not remember the scene at all. The blankets like suck off their beds and they just scream, and they come home to hook marks like dragged along the wall, and the babysitter's like incapacitated on the stairs, and she's like, "The children were screaming and screaming." Apparently she never went to the room because she's just like fainting on the stairs. And then they find this note from Hook, and he reads it and he goes, "Who? Peter, please." He acts like he's never heard the story of Peter Pan literally throughout this entire story. It's so frustrating to me. So Wendy tries to talk to him about who he actually is, and things get hella weird because she's like, "I was so obsessed with you. I was like in love with you. I hoped that you would interrupt at my wedding." And he's like, "Grandma," which she's trying to get him to remember who he is. So she shows him this picture and he's like, "That's not me." I would also deny this being me because that's a very creepy picture. She's trying to get him to go to Neverland to rescue the kids. And he's like, "I've never heard of that place in my life." Well, yes, you have, Peter. You watched the play, you read the book, your grandma's whole house is Peter Pan themed, but he's like brand new to Earth. On this day, he has no idea what she's talking about. So he takes a stress nap because he obviously has amnesia. And Tink comes, at which point he essentially tries to kill her and calls her a bug. There's this adorable scene where she's in the dollhouse, which I remember as a kid, and this is very, very cute. And she's trying to tell him, like, "You're Peter Pan, blah, blah." He doesn't really listen. So she physically assaults him. She like pulls a rug out. He does a flip, passes out, and she physically drags him to Neverland. So they arrive to Neverland, and it is honestly crusty. It is in disrepair. This looks like a town that was maintained by young boys and single men, I'm not gonna lie. They're laying low, or they're supposed to be, until he sees the kids, and then he just busts out and is like, "Those are my kids." Everybody else is like, "Peter Pan," and he's like, "No." Which at this point, it's honestly exhausting. Like, you got carried by a magical fairy. You're being confronted by Captain Hook. You're in a foreign land. Like, get it together. Hook wants to fight him, but he's obviously in no position to like duel. He tries to write him a check. He's like, "I'm a lawyer," which LOL. And he gives Tink, I think it's 3 days to get him in shape to fight. In my notes for this part, I have Hook is a mean friend because he accuses this guy of like not believing he could get the kids. So he puts him in a treasure chest and then puts scorpions in there, which is horrible. This is also bizarre because I don't remember how he got in the water, to be honest. But while he's down there, these mermaids come, and I think it's under the guise of like giving him water, but they're just like making out with him, kind of. Literally, like all the mermaids do this, which I feel like was completely unnecessary. But it does keep with the energy of the mermaids from the original cartoon. Anyway, then we get to meet the Lost Boys, and they're like, "Why is there an old man here?" Tink is trying to convince everybody that this is Peter, and Peter's like, "I'm not him." And obviously Rufio is here, which Rufio is very cool, and he's like, "Why can't you fly? Why can't you fight me? And the rest of the Lost Boys are like, that's actually a valid question, and they side with Rufio, which I don't blame them. But then we get this iconic scene where this little boy like gives him a manual facelift, and he's like, oh, there you are, Peter. So he's in, and so are some others, and then they're like, well, we have to train you because you are old and fat and you cannot fight Hook in this condition. So they just verbally berate him and put him through like horrific exercises for a while. He's literally struggling so bad. They try to make him fly by launching him on the slingshot to this like multicolored pool, which I for some reason remember. We arrive at what is arguably the most memorable Hook scene, which is the food fight scene. This food had me in a chokehold as a kid. In retrospect, it just looks like Cool Whip or something. I loved this scene. I think we all did. So the Lost Boys are eating, but we can see visually nothing. It looks like they're pretending. Peter's like, are you guys all insane? So he and Rufio get into this like insult slinging battle, which is actually kind of excellent. It's giving the like, you lint liquor commercial. And he calls him a cockamouth, which makes me laugh. But he pretends to fling food at him, but it actually goes on him. Like his imagination jumpstarts, and he creams Rufio in the face with this like Cool Whip concoction. He's like, am I experiencing drug-induced psychosis? This scene also features heavily in my life because I say you're doing it, Peter, regularly. I made a video a while back about obscure movie quotes that I use, and that was one of them. But in the movie, nobody even says, you're doing it, Peter. They say, you're doing it, Peter, you're doing it. Nobody says, you're doing it, Peter, but that's what I say. Anyway, giant big food fight. Also, did you guys remember there being other food at this food fight? Because in my head, it was just the Cool Whippy stuff, but actually there was like meats. And at one point, Peter stands on the table and Rufio chucks a coconut at him, and Peter slices it in half midair with a sword, and everybody's like shocked. And then Peter realizes he actually is that girl. Okay, see, I'm already running out of time. I'm sorry. I never do part two. I'm gonna have to.